I don't think we can talk enough, Daniel, about the love that you and I have for this, I'll call it generational talent defensive line that is before us at UGA.
Mm.
We're going to talk about how they showed out, why they're going to show out more, and again, why I'm just going to blab on them for hours on end this entire season next on Locked On Bulldogs.
You are Locked On Bulldogs, your daily podcast on the Georgia Bulldogs, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello and welcome to the Locked On Bulldogs podcast. Thanks so much for being here. Thanks for tuning in to the show today.
Yes, sir.
Today, just to be clear, is Tuesday. There's football on Saturday, and that means, Clint, that there's locks on Thursday. When there's football on Saturday,
What happens?
there's locks on Thursday. So locks are back.
Yeah.
Weldon Brothers, get us your parlay. Get us that well done parlay if you want it on the show.
By the way, Colby Weldon doubled down on Chaz Chambliss.
This man, he's starting to make a believer out of you, Clint.
I was just going to say, it's kind of working on me.
It's Colby. You've got that effect on just one person, just one guy.
I don't know you got a romantic interest in your life, but try to put it that way. Colby.
Channel it that direction. All right. We're here today, though, to talk about Georgia's scrimmage from last Saturday.
Yeah.
There's a lot to discuss other than Carson Beck. We obviously talked about Carson Beck on yesterday's show. If you haven't listened to that, go back and listen to yesterday's show. Available wherever you get your podcast. If you're watching on YouTube right now, thanks so much. Make sure you hit that subscribe button on YouTube. Get us to that 7,500. That's the goal.
Come on.
And then get on over to the audio side. Subscribe, Spotify, Stitcher Podcast, Apple Podcast, wherever you get your podcast. Follow the show. Subscribe to the show. Leave us a rating and review. That helps us out a tremendous amount. Thanks so much to all of you. Excited to go through this season with you. We're talking about other scrimmage thoughts, though. And I want to start with this. We're going to get to the defensive line in segment 2.
Okay.
If we can hold off, possibly.
I don't know if we can.
I don't know that we can. But I thought it was interesting that Kirby led in his conversation about Saturday's scrimmage. He led with that word that's standard, that he has talked about many times at Georgia. And he said scrimmage 1 was not happy, made this clear, that Georgia did not live up to, did not play to the standard.
No.
Scrimmage 2 was actually very complimentary, very outspoken, and said a lot of that had been corrected, and they did play up to that standard. I think that's a pretty significant statement. Now, of course, he did qualify, and he did say, we got a long way to go. We're behind where we were last year for scrimmage 2, which is to be understood. Last year, you had guys like Jalen Carter. You had guys like Nolan Smith. You had guys like Christopher Smith on the defensive side of the ball. You had guys like Stetson Bennett carrying the offensive load. So, of course, I think this team is going to be behind where last year's team was. But it's nice to hear that they're playing up to that Kirby Smart standard, because Kirby doesn't measure teams by, are they pretty good or not?
No.
Is this team good enough to win 10 games, to compete in a lot of our games? Kirby's standard is even beyond, is this team good enough to win a national championship? Kirby's standard is much higher than national championship. And so if they're playing to what Kirby calls the standard for Georgia football, Clint, I think that's really promising for where he sees this team.
Everyone thrilled with that. And when we talk standard, here's the standard. There's no wasted reps. Uses. There's no, we didn't have our best on best. We didn't have our tackle starting. We didn't have our guard starting. We were down a couple of receivers. We were down. If this guy really the play, that's not the standard at UGA. That might be the standard at other universities, Daniel. Other places might have that standard, but
Auburn?
Not here. We don't have the what if standard. And that's what he's talking about. So
Ohio State then.
That's Ohio State.
That's where we were going. Yeah.
By the way, real quick side note.
People love the banter. Clint, hit him with the side note.
Ryan Day quietly on a hot seat, Daniel.
Like
for real. He loses to Harbaugh again.
Let me pitch this to you, Clint.
Please.
Let me pitch this to you.
Yeah.
Jim Harbaugh wants out at Michigan. He's got this stuff with the NCAA.
Oh, here we go.
We don't know what's coming down the pipe. We don't know.
Just tell him you bought burgers, Jim. Just tell him you
it's
bought
not
burgers.
about the burgers. So says the NCAA.
It's about lying about the burgers.
I think there's a chance that Harbaugh goes to the NFL after this year. I think he's wanted to be there forever.
He does.
I think there's a chance that you could see it. I think Michigan's going to be very good this year. I think they could make the college football playoff. I think they're a contender to win a national championship. I think they're a team that could beat Georgia. We joke a lot about the beat Georgia period in the Michigan practice. I think Michigan could beat Georgia. I think there's a chance. What if Harbaugh gets Ryan Day fired and then walks and just says, my work here is done. And Ohio State and Michigan are looking for coaches in the same offseason, Clint. What a wild time it would be.
And Luke Fickell, instead of taking the Ohio State job, just
raises. Dan Lanning wins the Big Ten next year as the Oregon coach.
This is the world we live in. Okay.
This is real life.
This is real. I'm not joking about anything. No. Okay. This standard is college football standard. It is not what ifs. It's not maybe if we catch it. It's outwork, out hustle, outplay, outmaneuver, outsmart.
There's no jogging. There's no half reps. There's no.
And you heard that in the practice reports from the scrimmage that this second scrimmage, they were pulling guys out, Daniel, because they were foaming at the mouth to hit other people.
That was just dehydration. So that was.
That's just what the South does to you when you play football.
That's just we've all been there.
No, these guys are wanting to play. They're popping the pads. They are going full speed. It is quite incredible, Daniel, what's happening with this standard. And this is the new standard. I just got done watching Mark Rick today beat Urban Meyer in the cocktail party. No Sean Moreno. Just
love
carrying it.
Never gets old. I love Sean Moreno, man. God,
one of the damnedest of damn good dogs.
Love that guy.
That team, that was the standard before, Daniel.
God love him. But it's different. Things are different.
It hits different.
Things are different. You know what else hits different? This defensive line. We're going to talk about it right after this.
Want to let you know that this episode is sponsored by BetterHelp. BetterHelp is a way that you can go ahead and, just like it indicates in the name, get better help for a lot of life decisions. Daniel, you and I are constantly joking that we don't know a dang thing. There's no such thing as insiders or gurus in college football, right?
That is wildly accurate.
Because there's not. But what if I was to tell you in life, there actually can be somebody to help guide you, help give you some insight, and help give you some encouragement the things that you want to achieve in life.
That would be useful, Clint.
See,
if only such a thing existed.
Well, giving the best type of therapy and counseling and help that you can get is BetterHelp. Give online therapy a try at BetterHelp.com/LockedOnCollege and get on your way to being your best self. And the best self, as Kirby Smart has always done, is to make these players better, to make this team better. And BetterHelp is going to do the same thing for you. Come alongside, help you in these very, very hard, maybe you're going through a transition. Maybe you're confused about a couple things. Maybe you just feel that you need somebody to hear you out and give you some guided encouragement along the way. And that's where BetterHelp comes in. I know Daniel and I, we are morons with each other, but it just helps to be morons together and talk it out with one another. Get on the phone and do that. Well, trust somebody besides two idiots. Trust not those us. Who are not us. Don't trust us. Go to people that have a very, very good insight to this, are very, very strategic and trained on how to do this. Give BetterHelp a try if you're starting therapy. It's entirely online, designed to be convenient, flexible, and suited to your schedule. Fill out a brief questionnaire to get matched with a licensed therapist and switch therapists anytime, no additional charge. Let therapy be your map with BetterHelp. Visit betterhelp.com/lockedoncollege today and get 10% off your first month. That's BetterHelp, HELP.com/lockedoncollege. This defensive line, Daniel, can we, if we were trying to set the mood a little bit, if we had some music,
I don't know.
because
you and Colby Weldon chat about that. I'm not privy to those.
no, I told him to go
conversations.
elsewhere. Told him to go elsewhere.
Can neither confirm nor deny.
The Riz is it's a lot with Colby. Here's the deal. I'm gonna say this again and again and again and again. Walker, Devontae, Jordan Davis, Jalen Carter.
They're good.
They're good,
Pretty good.
but we have better.
It's not accurate what you're saying. It's not accurate.
But Daniel, that's the feeling. That's the feeling I get. Okay, that's the
fear
feeling
of this
I get.
defensive line is depth, and Georgia has never lacked depth on the defensive line because guys like Warren Brinson, guys like Nazir Stackhouse, guys like Zion Logue have always been the depth. Those have been the guys behind the Devontae Wyatts and Jordan Davises and Jalen Carters. And now those guys are the frontline guys. And those are the only proven guys on the roster. Those are the only guys who've ever done anything in college football.
I'll allow this
On the roster. And so Kirby's talked about it now multiple times after both scrimmages. He's talked about the defensive line depth is a concern. After the first scrimmage, he came right out and said, we need to get some defensive linemen that want to help us because we don't have very many. Clearly trying to motivate some of these guys, clearly trying to light a fire under some of these young defensive linemen. But Clint, there's two prongs to this conversation.
Okay.
I'll let you choose which one you want to talk about first. You want to talk about the old guys or the young guys first?
So there's a little this or that is what
It is.
what you're giving me. Right
Would you rather first? We'll talk about both, but would you rather first talk about the old guys or the young guys?
I want to talk about the old guys, Daniel, because
Let's talk about the old guys.
because truth be told, these old guys might be giving me more excitement than the young guys, and the young guys are talented beyond belief, Daniel. But
the question about the old guys, and by the old guys I mean Warren Brinson, Nazir Stackhouse, Zion Logue, and I'm going to throw Jonathan Jefferson into that conversation as well. So we'll give those four. The question with the old guys to me is, can any of them be elite? Can any of them be
that's right,
creme de la creme, havoc creating game changers? So I pose the question to you, Clint. What excites you about this group of veteran defensive linemen that Georgia has?
It's the fact that they have been together as a unit under Kirby Smart for a few years now, and we know that development of raw talent at UGA gets a huge uptick when under Kirby Smart. I'm going to go to Jalen Carter. Jalen Carter was the most talented defensive lineman on our team for 2 years in a row. Okay?
Yep.
For one of those years, he didn't play that many snaps in comparison to his talent level and even the gap from him and the next best player on the team. Well, what if I was to tell you that Nazir Stackhouse, Zion, like these guys, it's not for lack of talent that they weren't playing. It was for something else. I think that's the case. It was for rotational depth. It was because they were the ceiling on the other guys. Again, Jalen Carter was in fact out there. These guys were out there. They had to beat them out, and you can't beat those guys out. But now this talent is there. They got another year, and development under Kirby is an exceptional thing, and they're getting nipped at the heels from these young guys. So, Daniel, what excites me is I think Stackhouse is probably the name that I'm most excited for on this defensive line. Just cannot wait to watch him do a full season being the man in charge in the middle.
If there's a guy that I think can be elite from this group, it's Nazir Stackhouse. I think he's the guy that can vault himself to a first round. Great.
Yes.
I have been on that I think Warren Brinson's going to take the biggest step forward this offseason. I've been on it for a while. I think Zion Logan's been kind of, weirdly enough, going into last season, Zion Logan was getting a lot of talk.
Yeah.
Isn't that, like, don't you remember that? Like, it was
I
like,
do.
who's the guy that's going to be next to Jalen Carter? It's Zion Logue. Zion Logue's going to be the guy who's coming in. He was in interviews. He was being talked about as a team leader. And it's not like he disappeared when the season started. It's not like we didn't see him.
He was fine.
I feel like going into this season, he's almost the forgotten guy on that defensive line. I wonder if he's got a chip on his shoulder. I wonder if he's got something to prove coming out. To me, though, the compelling thing about this defensive line is not those three guys.
Nope.
It's the other three guys. And by the other three guys, I mean Kristen Miller.
Oh.
I mean Jamal Jarrett. And I mean Jordan Hall. 2 freshmen and 1 sophomore. I don't know that Georgia has another Jalen Carter in the mix. But I think there's 2 first-rounders in the 3 guys that I just named.
Okay, this is really wild because you named 3 guys. You named 3 guys.
Easy.
And I look at those 3, and I don't know which one of those 3. I think I have a name that I tend to lean towards more than the others.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't know if at the end of it, Daniel, those 3 are... I can name one that's going to be head and shoulders above... Today, I couldn't take a bet to...
Yeah.
Like you just said, 2 out of the 3. Okay. Name who those 2 are. I think it could be any of them. I think it'd be a combination of any of the 3. And I don't know who the odd man left out in not being in first round. The name that does strike me is Christian Miller. That's the name that I go to a lot. But you look at what Hall's done, and you look at the notes, and you look at he gets my attention.
This true freshman, Jordan Hall, might be the most exciting player on the team. To me, he might be the most exciting freshman on the team, and I'm talking about ahead of Aguero. Like, I think he might be. We're talking about consensus 5-star, number 1, number 2 rated defensive lineman in the class by everyone. 5 stars all around. We're talking about 315, 320, 6'4", middle of the defensive line. But then you read the scouting report on him, you watch the tape, and you realize this guy can go anywhere on the defensive line. He's fast. He's nimble. He comes around the edge on a stunt. And then he just takes these massive arms and he just throws offensive linemen aside.
Yeah.
He's going to play this year, Clint. We talked at the very end of Friday's show. Will there be some freshmen? And it just slipped my mind. He didn't even cross my mind. This is the name. This is the freshman that nobody's talking about right now for Georgia. Like people are. I mean, I know there's people who are maybe talking about him a little bit. This is the name that nobody's talking about that I think could have one of those seasons that, like, by the end of the season, it's like, oh, we couldn't live without this guy. On this defensive line.
He was the glue that held everything together.
Oh, he was the guy that came in and just got 7 sacks as a true freshman this year.
Yeah, Michael Williams. I know. There's Marvin on the other side, but if you were to give me some juice on who's going to be second in this team,
on the other side, not Marvin. I'm sorry, you mispronounced Chaz.
I said he almost had me. Didn't say he had me. I said he almost had me. Yeah, Hall may be the dude that is second or third on this team in sacks, and
I mean,
that's not crazy to say. It's not insane to say.
Again, it's not like I think he's going to come in and beat out Nazir Stackhouse for that spot, but I think you look at a third down guy, like a third down defensive line package, and all of a sudden you got Stackhouse and Brinson in there eating up the run, on first and second down, getting after the quarterback. Now you got third and long. You're going to tell me you're just going to bring in Jalen Walker? You're going to bring in Marvin Jones Jr.? You're going to bring in Jordan Hall and put him right over the center? And you're going to say, good luck to you, Joe Milton.
It's called
I wish you well.
Heat-seeking missile.
Tell me how far you can throw it from a knee again, please.
Daniel, do you know that in the rules of football, when your knee touches the ground, you're down?
But he can throw it so far, Clint.
Okay, well,
it starts with, I'm not going to say how far it is, but it starts with a 9.
Okay. Starts with a 9. Hey, we're going to come back right after these and talk more about the deepest position group that UGA has. But first, these. And
Clint.
These are FanDuel.
Oh,
Daniel?
FanDuel.
These are FanDuel. Yeah, FanDuel are these.
That's what these are.
That's what these are. FanDuel.com/locked on. We're going to have locks coming up here on Thursday because we have college football.
Oh.
I don't know if you understand what that means. We have college football. We have games to be bet on. We have over-unders that are going to start. Get your over-unders in. Get them in.
If you don't think
now.
your boys are giving out some week 0 locks, if you don't think we have got bets that we are committed to
every game,
then you're wrong. You're wrong about so many things. This may not be the podcast for you.
The sheet is full. And where Daniel and I go to make all these bets is FanDuel.com/locked on. They are the official sports book of Locked On Podcast and Locked On Bulldogs. We love them. They are easy to use. They are safe, secure, fast, reliable. Get your money out when you need to. Put your money in when you need to. And they have every single bet. All the odds that we will use for this entire year will come from FanDuel. FanDuel.com/locked on. The official sports book of Locked On Podcast. The official sports book of Locked On Bulldog. Get over there right now. Put your money down. Get it into the action because games are coming, and once they go live, you can't go ahead and get back over unders. When we give them out, you go do it. FanDuel.com/locked on. Terms and conditions apply.
Didn't realize there were so many these, but here we are. These.
Just the one these.
Just the one. Clint, you teased it before we went to these. The deepest, maybe most exciting, maybe position group that has you feeling the best coming out of Scrimmage 2. Kirby said fall camp is, we put it to bed. We're now transitioning into just a bit of kind of preseason practice mode, looking to some future opponents. Georgia prepping for Auburn, Georgia prepping for South Carolina. You better believe Georgia prepping for Florida, prepping for Tennessee. All these things are happening, and then they'll begin game week preparations later in the week. Coming out of fall camp, coming out of Scrimmage 2, though, Clint, where would you take us in terms of a position group that you feel is among the strongest on this Georgia roster?
I hinted that the defense could be the best defense we've ever had at Georgia. And the reason I said that statistically is because, again, their games are shortened. It now takes less time to do these games than they did before. So that's point one. Point two.
They instituted the pitch clock. Did they not?
Instituted the pitch clock.
Well, you're not allowed to step out and adjust your gloves 100 times in between pitches. And so that
Bryce
helps
Harper
with this.
is furious.
He's not happy. Do you know who is happy? All Braves fans forever.
Because I hate to break it to you, but we winning it again.
It's going good.
Things
going well.
No, the death march is going to be real for Kirby. The defense has shortened the game, and we're suffocating, and we have a lot more packages in which has a blitz. I ask you, Daniel, I want to say the deepest position group. Let's bring it up to offense, defense, because I think it's a little unfair to try.
That seems fair.
Defensive side, I want to say secondary, but that's coming off last year's secondary, Daniel. That had Christopher Smith, a incredible safety. Daniel. Malachi Starks, who's still there. A lockdown corner, 2 lockdown corners that got drafted. So it's hard to say best position because it seems that could be. I'm not saying it could be a step down compared to last year's group. Okay, that's interesting. Bullard's back. He was there last year. What about edge, Daniel?
I don't hate edge.
I'm going to say option. Edge is going to be our deepest position group. We have the highest talent, the highest ceiling. We have Marvin. You said Jalen coming off the edge. And Kirby has already said, look for Jalen off the edge on third down. It's going to be a thing.
Yep.
So we have Impemba. We have incredible talent from freshman and sophomore.
I mean, this freshman class is coming in here. There's some guys, Clint. There's some guys.
It's easy to say inside backer because that is, I think, but there's a 3-man rotation on it, Daniel.
I mean, there's a 3-man rotation there in terms of there's 3 guys in Pops, Smile, and Jalen Walker that are clearly ahead of everybody else.
You're not going to put Sori in there?
Those 3 guys are clearly ahead of everybody else.
Look, I'm here.
I was just about to say, but then there's guys like Xavier Sori. And then, I mean, go to this freshman class. Guys like Wilson.
Washington.
Washington, Madden. Like, some of these guys, I think the deepest position group is inside backer. I think the most interesting position group is edge, though, because of how many guys, and, insert another joke here about how Colby Weldon has gotten to you by saying that the edge is the deepest position group on the team. Like, he's deep in your head. He's inceptioned
like
you at this point.
He's like a worm. Colby, has anybody called you a worm before?
I do think Chaz Chambliss, though, factors into that.
He does.
Guys like, obviously, the best player on the team, Michael Williams, and Marvin Jones Jr., who we expect to have an absolute monster of a year. But then I think multiple freshmen find playing time and factor in. I think if you were to go traditional position groups and just say linebacker, Georgia is so overwhelmed with talent at that inside outside, like that grouping of players. It's almost criminal what you're looking at on this Georgia roster.
Backers is, in fact, and they're kind of prototypical back, like 6'2", 230, and can fly around everywhere on the field, come off the edge and blitz, double A, shotgun blitz up the middle, and then sideline to sideline. I think you're right. Okay, offensive side, Daniel. What's the deepest? What's the best position group on offense?
What's the best position group, or what's the deepest position group?
Let's go best. Let's go best.
The best position group on offense is the offensive line.
Hands down.
It's not the deepest, though.
No, because you started hitting
sustain
second,
a couple
third.
injuries on the offensive line, and the bucket will be right under the old arm, and we're just keeping him close.
Okay, what's the deepest position group?
The offensive line is the best position group because left to right, that thing reads like a NFL draft board. It is loaded with absolute terrible intentions and exceptional talent. Best or deepest position group on the offense, I think without a doubt, has to be wide receiver.
Yeah.
It's Georgia can go to many
deep.
places. They can go to so many places to hurt you at wide receiver. You want to set up some packages, get creative, Mike Bobo, where you feature some smaller guys. You want put them out in space, some Dominic Lovitz, some Ladd McConkeys, some Arian Smiths. You want to feature some of these guys. You want to go bigger. You want to feature some more outside edge perimeter blocking heavy packages with wide receivers. You can absolutely do that as well. You can get some big guys out in front and throw some flares and some screens and some short stuff over in the flat to some of these speedy guys to get the ball in their hands. We've seen what some of these guys can do, like Ladd McConkey with the ball in their hand. I expect Dominic Lovett to be another one of those guys. And I expect guys like Arian Smith to try to be touching the ball as much as possible this year as well. I just think there's so many ways that this receiver group can beat you. And once again, we're not talking about any of the freshman wideouts.
It's scary.
We're barely even talking about any of the sophomore wideouts, and that includes Dylan Bell, who was already very good last year as a true freshman.
How good does it feel to be a Georgia fan, Daniel?
It's a lot. It's a lot that we have going on right now.
Get your mind right. Saturdays start this week, and if you're not doing anything on Saturday, good, because you just should be watching
Like
football.
how you say Saturdays start this week. The day Saturday is beginning now. It's
correct.
It's happening. You did not misspeak that. That is,
I've elongated Saturday.
yeah. Saturdays happen for 20 weeks a year. There are only 20 Saturdays in a year. 52 weeks, 52 Sundays, 52 Mondays, 20 Saturdays.
You can take your Sundays, you can stuff them in a
And
sack.
the first one is this Saturday. You love to see it.
Come back all this week. We'll be getting you geared up for the season, talking about the Georgia Bulldogs, as well as all deep insight to previews. We're going to preview a whole heck of a lot the next 2 weeks. My goodness. And give out
a
a
lot to cover.
We got a lot
and
to
none of it is UT Martin.
Zero.
Zero.
This has been Locked On Bulldogs, part of Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day. We'll see you guys then.